Step across the threshold. Leave the dust of the marketplace and the clamor of the wanting mind at the gate. For where we journey, names are weight and speech is a leak in the vessel of power. You have spent a lifetime casting nets into an empty sea, certain that if you only rowed further, called louder, or labored longer, the harvest would appear. But the sea does not respond to the net. It responds to the moon. The air here is different. It is thick with the scent of unlit incense and the cool resonance of stone. Listen, not to the cadence of my voice, but to the pulse that beats beneath it, the low, steady thrum of the law of silent abundance. This is the frequency of the unborn star and the germinating seed. It does not announce itself with a trumpet. It arrives with the inevitability of the tide, the keeper of the empty jar. In a city of gold and glass, there lived a woman who spent her days chasing the wind. She had been told by the merchants that the wind carried the scent of the future, and if she could only capture it, she would never know want again. She fashioned a box of the purest gold, lined with velvet and encrusted with gems, and she ran through the streets, swinging her box, snapping the lid shut the moment she felt a breeze. But each time she opened the lid in the privacy of her home, the box was empty. There was only the cold, hard metal and the mocking silence. One day, exhausted and hollow, she climbed the high crag where the old one sat. She showed the sage her golden box and wept, "I have the finest vessel in the kingdom, yet I cannot hold the wealth I seek." The sage did not look at the box. Instead, she took a simple clay jarcoman, unadorned and open to the sky. She placed it on the ground between them. "The box is a prison," the sage whispered. "It seeks to own what can only be inhabited. You run to catch the wind, but the wind only rests in that which has stopped running." The woman watched. As she sat in absolute stillness, the wind began to swirl around the clay jar. It did not stay inside, nor did it leave. It became the jar's breath. In that silence, the woman realized that abundance was not a prize to be locked away, but a climate to be entered. You are that vessel. For too long, you have been the golden box, rigid, frantic, and closed. You have defined yourself by the search, making the seeker your identity, not realizing that to seek is to declare to the universe that you do not have. This manuscript is the shattering of the box. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your own body as it rests against the earth. You are moving from the world of doing into the liturgy of being. In this space, there is no competition, for there is no other. There is only the internal frequency. If you can hold the vibration of the thing you desire in the absolute privacy of your soul, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself to match you. It is a mathematical certainty, a spiritual gravity. We begin now. Not a study, but an unfolding. The seal is broken. The silence is your scepter. The illusion of the search. The great deception of the modern soul is the belief that the truth is a destination. You have been trained, from the moment your eyes first adjusted to the light of this world, to be a hunter. You hunt for meaning. You hunt for career. You hunt for the twin flame. And you hunt for the ever-elusive purpose that promises to finally grant you permission to rest. You have turned your life into a perpetual hallway, always walking toward a door that recedes at the exact pace of your approach. But hear this axiom, and let it settle into the marrow of your bones. The act of seeking is the primary ritual of lack. When you seek, you broadcast a frequency to the unified field that says, "I am not." You tell the universe that there is a gap between who you are and what you desire, because the law of silent abundance is a mirror of your internal state. The universe, faithful and literal, simply provides you with more seeking. It gives you more books to read, more gurus to follow, and more signs to decipher, all while keeping the prize just beyond the veil. You have become a professional waiter in the lobby of your own life. To find your purpose is to stop looking for it. It is to realize that you are not the traveler on the road. You are the road itself. The treasure is not buried in a distant land. It is the very soil upon which you stand, waiting for you to stop pacing long enough to feel the gold beneath your feet. The blind navigator. In the age of the great fog, there was a captain named Alara who commanded the swiftest vessel on the inner sea. She was obsessed with finding the great current, a legendary stream of water said to carry any ship to the port of eternal harvest without the need for oars or wind. Elara spent decades studying ancient charts. She climbed the mast every hour to peer through her brass glass, searching the horizon for a ripple, a color change, or a sign of the current's power. She pushed her crew to the brink of madness, tacking left and right, circling islands, and measuring the salinity of every wave. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the water in shades of bruised violet, Elara collapsed on the deck, her eyes stinging from the salt and the strain of looking. She dropped her brass glass into the depths and whispered to the empty air, "I have looked everywhere. The current is a myth. We are lost in a stagnant sea." A voice rose from the water, soft as a sigh. It was an old sea turtle, surfacing beside the hull. "Captain," the creature said, "why do you look for the water while you are drowning in it?" Elara leaned over the rail. "I do not seek the water. I seek the current that moves." The turtle blinked slowly. "Lower a piece of driftwood into the sea and let go of the rope," it commanded. Elara did so. She watched as the wood hit the surface. It did not bob aimlessly. It immediately began to glide southward with a silent, terrifying speed. Leaving a wake in the twilight, Elara gasped, "We are in it. How long have we been in the current?" "Since you left the harbor," the turtle replied. "But you were moving your ship so frantically in search of the current that you could never feel its pull. You were fighting the very thing you were looking for. You are Elara. You're frantic, searching for your purpose. It's the very noise that prevents you from hearing the silent hum of the direction you are already being pulled. Your purpose is not a job title. It is not a specific achievement. It is the natural, effortless expression of your essence when you stop trying to be something else. Consider the flower. The lily does not seek to be a lily. It does not attend seminars on how to bloom, nor does it look at the rose and wonder if it is failing its potential. It simply yields to the intelligence within its seed. It occupies its space with such absolute presence that the sun and the rain have no choice but to nourish it. The law of silent abundance demands a radical form of surrender. This is not the surrender of the defeated, but the surrender of the sovereign. It is the decision to stop auditioning for a life you already own. When you stop seeking, you close the gap. You collapse the timeline. You move from the energy of wanting, which is thin, shrill, and desperate, to the energy of possession. How does one possess that which has not yet appeared? Through the silent practice of the imminent arrival, in the sanctuary of your own mind, away from the eyes of those who would judge your stillness as laziness. Perform this internal rite. Find a place of absolute quiet. Sit with your spine erect, acting as a lightning rod for the unseen. Do not pray for what you want. Do not ask for guidance. Instead, breathe in the air and recognize it as the breath of the infinite. Visualize a great fog, much like the one that surrounded Elara's ship. This fog represents the unknown, the space where your purpose and your abundance currently reside in wave form, waiting to be collapsed into particles by your observation. Do not try to peer through the fog. Do not try to blow it away with your will. Simply sit in the center of it. Feel the moisture of the fog on your skin. Accept the blindness. Say to yourself, in the hushed tones of a secret, I am already where I need to be. The current is moving me, even now. As you hold this thought, notice the tension in your shoulders and your jatha, physical manifestations of the seeker. Let them dissolve. As the tension leaves, imagine the fog beginning to glow from within. It is not clearing. It is becoming luminous. You realize the fog isn't hiding the treasure. The fog is the treasure. It is the raw material of everything you have ever desired, swirling around you, waiting for you to stop pushing it away with your frantic hands. When you reach the point of deep, heavy peace, where you no longer feel the urge to get up and do something to justify your existence, you have entered the frequency of the hidden room. The world will tell you that this is dangerous. The hustle of the marketplace demands that you be hungry. They tell you that if you are not chasing, you are being chased. They equate stillness with stagnation, but they are looking at the surface of the ocean during a storm. While you are learning to inhabit the depths where the pressure creates diamonds, the hunger the world speaks of is a famine of the soul. It is a bottomless pit that no amount of money or fame can fill, because it is built on the foundation of not enough. The initiate of the silent abundance operates from more than enough. You do not work to achieve. You work to express the achievement that is already complete within you. You do not speak to be heard. You speak because the silence has become so full that it must overflow. From this moment on, when the impulse to search arises, when you feel that familiar, itchy anxiety to check the horizon for your ship, return to the parable of the navigator. Remember the driftwood. Your life is already in motion. The current of your highest destiny is already beneath your hull. The only thing required of you is to stop rowing in circles. Put down the oars. Drop the brass glass. The destination is not ahead of you. It is rising up to meet you from within. By ceasing the search, you become comfortable. You become a fixed point of light in a drifting world. And all the abundance that has been searching for you for energy is always seeking its match, will finally be able to locate its home. 2. The frequency of the hidden room. There is a chamber within the architecture of your spirit that the world has never visited. It is a space without windows, for it requires no external light. It is a space without doors, for you do not enter it so much as you realize you have never left it. This is the hidden room, the sanctuary of the unspoken. In the kingdoms of men, power is measured by roar and reach. You are told that to possess a thing, you must claim it loudly. You are taught that to protect your dreams, you must broadcast them, manifesting through the vibration of speech. But the law of silent abundance operates upon a more ancient, more terrifyingly potent symmetry. That which is whispered to the world is scattered to the wind. That which is held in the silence of the hidden room becomes the gravity of the soul. Every time you speak of your unformed desires to another, no matter how trusted the confidant, the psychic pressure required to crystallize that desire into physical form is leaked. You are seeking the hit of social validation in exchange for the substance of the miracle. You trade your sovereign gold for the copper coins of a compliment. To live within the frequency of the hidden room is to understand that the most powerful prayers are those that never pass the lips. The silent architect. In the province of Kamar, during the reign of the great unseen, there was an architect named Kalon. While other builders competed to raise the tallest spires and the most gilded domes to catch the eyes of the emperor, Kalon withdrew to the edge of the desert. He was commissioned to build a temple of peace, but for 7 years, no stone was seen rising above the dunes. The other architects mocked him. Kalon builds for the scorpions. They laughed, pointing at the flat, empty sand where his laborers worked in absolute stillness. The emperor grew impatient and rode out to the site, demanding to see the progress of the gold he had invested. Kalon led the emperor not up a grand staircase, but down into the earth. They descended a narrow spiral carved into the bedrock, deeper and deeper until the heat of the sun was a distant memory. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a cavern of such staggering beauty that the emperor fell to his knees. The walls were not made of stone, but of a rare, translucent salt that vibrated with a low, musical hum. The light came from nowhere and everywhere, a soft cerulean glow that seemed to breathe. "Why have you hidden this glory beneath the dust?" the emperor whispered, his voice trembling. "Because, my lord," Kalon replied, "a spire in the sun is eroded by the wind and envied by the passerby. Its beauty is exhausted by the act of being seen. But this temple is built into the foundation of the world. It does not ask for the sun's permission to shine. It creates its own light because it has nowhere else to look. It is powerful because it is a secret. Your life is the temple. Most people spend their energy building the spire, the social media profile, the public reputation, the external markers of success that the wind of public opinion can blow down in a single afternoon. They are exhausted because they are trying to sustain a frequency that requires the constant gaze of others to remain real. The initiate, however, focuses entirely on the subterranean cavern. When you cultivate a state of abundance in the hidden room of your mind, you are building on bedrock. You are creating a resonance so dense and so private that it becomes a physical law. You do not need to tell the world you are wealthy. The world will feel the weight of your prosperity before you even enter the room. You do not need to announce your peace. Your peace will act as a cooling shade for every frantic soul that crosses your path. This is the secret of the hushed frequency. It is the realization that your internal world is the only real world, and the external world is merely the shadow cast by your inner light. If the light in the hidden room is steady, the shadow will follow. The silent practice of the sealed seal. To inhabit this chapter, you must learn the art of the sealed seal. This is not a visualization of a future event, but a deepening of a current state. Retire to a space where you are certain to be undisturbed. Sit in a posture of quiet dignity. Close your eyes and imagine yourself descending the spiral staircase of Kellen's temple. With every breath, you go deeper into the cool, blue center of your own being. Once you arrive in your hidden room, bring to mind the one thing you have been seeking or wanting most fervently. Do not look at it as something far away. See it sitting on a pedestal in the center of this room. It is already here. It is yours. Now, here is the alchemy. Do not describe it. Do not use words like money, love, or health. Instead, feel the vibration of its presence. If your desire were a sound, what would it be? If it were a temperature, would it be the warmth of a hearth or the cool of a spring? Inhabit that sensation fully. Now, imagine a heavy velvet curtain falling over the pedestal and a great, golden lock snapping shut on the door of this room. You are leaving the desire in the dark, in the silence, in the absolute custody of the divine. As you open your eyes and return to the market of your daily life, you must carry the seal. If someone asks you about your plans, smile and give them a generic answer. If you feel the urge to brag or to complain, bite your tongue until it bleeds if necessary. You are protecting the pressure in the hidden room. You are allowing the frequency to cook, undisturbed by the cooling breath of others' opinions. The frequency of the hidden room is one of sovereign indifference. When you truly know that the temple is built beneath the sand, you are no longer bothered by the mockers who see only dust. You no longer need to prove your worth, because proof is a requirement of the unsure. Consider the hustle culture you have left behind. It is a culture of noise. It is the sound of people trying to convince themselves they are succeeding by shouting it at the ceiling. It is a thin, brittle energy. Compare this to the silence of the deep forest. The forest does not announce that it is growing. It simply grows. It does not ask the mountain for permission to exist. It simply exists. The mountain, in turn, does not explain its height. It is high because it is the mountain. You must become the mountain. You must become the deep cavern. The world will try to draw you out. It will tempt you with questions, with opportunities to collaborate, with masterminds and networking. It will tell you that if you aren't seen, you will be forgotten. This is the ultimate test of the initiate. Can you be forgotten by the world and yet be fully known to yourself? If you can endure the invisibility of the hidden room, you will find that a strange thing begins to happen. Because you are no longer leaking your energy outward, your internal voltage begins to rise. You become magnetic in a way that defies logic. Opportunities will find you without you sending a single email. Wealth will flow toward you through channels you didn't know existed. People will look at you and wonder what your secret is. They will sense a weight to your presence, a gravity that they cannot explain. They will try to get you to speak, to share your strategy, to give them the 3 steps to your success. And you will smile. You will speak of the weather, or the taste of the tea, or the beauty of the sunset. But you will never lead them down the spiral staircase. The hidden room is for you and the infinite alone. It is the marriage chamber of the soul and the law. And in that union, in that absolute, hushed privacy, the silent abundance is conceived. It will be born into the world when it is ready, not as a noisy infant, but as a fully formed reality that no man can take from you. Hold the silence, guard the room, trust the hum. 3. Mirror Alchemy. You stand before the world as one stands before a mountain lake at dawn. You see the jagged peaks, the shifting clouds, and the deep, bruised indigo of the water. You reach out to touch the mountain, but your hand meets only the cold, flat surface of the ripple. You cry out to the sky, but the sky is a ghost beneath your feet. This is the central trap of the uninitiated. You believe the reflection is the reality. You spend your years polishing the glass, trying to scrub away the shadows of debt, the smudges of loneliness, or the cracks of not enough. You fight the mirror, unaware that the mirror has no will of its own. It is a faithful servant, a silent witness, a perfect echo. Mirror alchemy is the art of turning the gaze inward to adjust the light source. It is the realization that the physical world is not the present moment. It is a delayed broadcast. What you see with your physical eyes today is the past tense of your internal frequency from yesterday. To react to the lack you see in your bank account or the silence in your heart is to argue with a shadow. It is a waste of vital breath. To change the image, you must change the object standing before the glass. You must inhabit the abundant self so completely that the mirror has no choice but to reform the world in your likeness. The weaver of shadows. In the high towers of the Obsidian City, there lived a weaver named Ilara. She was tasked with creating the great tapestry of the realm, but she worked in a room lit only by a single, flickering candle. On the wall opposite her loom, a giant shadow was cast, a dark, distorted shape that moved as she moved. Ilara became obsessed with the shadow. She felt it was a monster haunting her work. She took her shears and tried to cut the shadow off the stone wall, but she only dulled her blades. She threw buckets of white paint at the dark shape, but the shadow simply sat atop the paint, darker than before. She pleaded with the shadow to leave her in peace, but it only mimicked her pleading gestures. One night, in a fit of exhaustion, Ilara knocked over her stool. As she reached down to steady herself, her hand passed near the candle. She saw the shadow on the wall jump and grow. She froze. She moved her hand closer to the flame, and the shadow swallowed the room. She moved her hand away, and the shadow shrank. She did not look at the wall again. Instead, she began to focus entirely on the candle and the position of her own body in relation to the light. She began to dance. She moved with grace, with strength, and with the joy of a creator. She forgot the wall existed. When the sun rose and the candle flickered out, she turned around. The shadow was gone, but the wall was covered in the most exquisite patterns of light and color, etched there by the sheer intensity of her focused movement. She had not fixed the shadow. She had mastered the light. The monster of your current circumstances is the shadow on Ilara's wall. Your struggle to fix your life through frantic external action is the shearing of the stone. It is loud, it is violent, and it is utterly ineffective. In the law of silent abundance, we practice the sacrament of the turn back. This does not mean you ignore your responsibilities or live in a fantasy. It means you deny the mirror the power to define your state. If the mirror shows empty, you do not agree with it. You go to your hidden room and you feel full. You hold that fullness with such quiet authority that the mirror begins to feel the pressure of the new reality. Abundance is a light source. When you stand in the frequency of I am, you are the candle. The world is merely the surface upon which your light is cast. The silent practice of the inner luminary. This ritual requires no tools but your own focused awareness. It is best performed when the shadows of the world seem loudest, perhaps after a difficult conversation or a day of perceived setback. Close your eyes. Visualize your physical body as a hollow vessel made of thin, dark glass, deep within the center of your chest. Imagine a point of light, no larger than a mustard seed. This is the isness, the part of you that is connected to the infinite, the part that has never known want. As you breathe, see this seed grow. It is not a fire that burns. It is a glow that stirrates now. Bring into your mind the problem the world is currently reflecting back to you. See it as a gray, heavy fog outside the glass of your body. Instead of pushing the fog away, increase the brightness of your internal light. Watch as the light passes through the glass of your skin. As it touches the gray fog, the fog does not disappear, transmutes. It becomes the fuel for your glow. The problem is revealed to be nothing more than unformed energy waiting for your command. Say to the silence, the mirror reflects only what I give it. I give it the sun. Feel the warmth of the sun in your hands, your feet, and your brow. When you open your eyes, look at your surroundings. Do not look for change yet. If you look for change, you are still seeking, and seeking is lack. Simply look at the world and know that it is currently being rewritten. The alchemist does not check the lead every 5 minutes to see if it has become gold. To check is to doubt, and doubt is a shadow that dims the light. The alchemist knows the process is underway because the alchemist has set the temperature. Your temperature is your private assumption. Most people walk through the world in a state of reactionary living. They see a bill. They feel poor. They see a rival's success. They feel behind. They are like leaves blown by the wind of the mirror's reflection. The initiate practicing mirror alchemy is the wind itself. You must develop a sacred arrogance toward the evidence of your senses. When the world says no, you hear the N as the beginning of now. When the world says wait, you recognize it as the pause before the exhale. This is not delusion. It is the highest form of logic. If the internal precedes the external, every master since the beginning of time has confirmed that it does then. The only logical act is to ignore the external until it aligns with the internal. This is why the law is silent. If you tell people you are practicing mirror alchemy, they will call you a fool. They will point at the mirror and say, "Look, the shadow is still there. You have changed nothing." And in that moment, if you listen to them, you will look at the shadow. You will agree with the shadow, and the alchemy will break. The secret must be kept to maintain the heat of the transmutation. You must be the only one who knows that the shadow is already dead. You must walk through your day as if the abundance you desire has already arrived and is simply in transit, like a ship that has already cleared the harbor and is visible on the horizon of your soul, even if the physical eyes cannot yet see the sails. The delay is the mercy. Understand that the delay between your internal shift and the mirror's reflection is a divine mercy. It is a buffer that prevents every stray, negative thought from manifesting instantly. If the mirror were instant, the world would be chaos. For the human mind is a garden that often grows weeds. The delay allows you to prune your thoughts, to steady your frequency, and to prove to the law that you are serious about your new state. Do not be discouraged by the delay. Use it. Treat the period between the feeling and the fact as a sacred engagement. It is the time where you marry the idea. You become so familiar with the feeling of abundance that when the physical gold finally arrives, it feels like an old friend, not a shocking stranger. You will know the alchemy is working when you stop caring, when the reflection changes, when you reach the state where the internal feeling is so satisfying, so rich, and so complete that the external proof is secondary. The mirror will shatter its own constraints to reach you. The shadow will become the light, and the obsidian city of your life will be bathed in the dawn you created in the dark. Turn your back on the shadow. Feed the candle. Be the light. 4. The invisible act. There is a potency in the unseen that the world can never replicate. We live in an age of the exhibitionist, where the value of a deed is measured by the number of eyes that graze upon it. You have been conditioned to believe that for an act to be real, it must be witnessed. For a success to be valid, it must be announced. But in the high liturgy of the law of silent abundance, we recognize this for what it is: a tragic hemorrhage of power. The invisible act is the practice of performing your most sacred labors in total anonymity. It is the understanding that when you do a thing for the sake of the world's applause, the world pays you in full. With that applause, then, the spiritual transaction is closed. But when you perform an act of power, of charity, or of creation in absolute secrecy, you leave the transaction open. You create a vacuum in the unseen realm that the infinite is required, by its own nature, to fill with a substance far more enduring than praise. To move in silence is to move with the weight of the tides. The ocean does not ask for a signature on the shore. It simply rearranges the earth. The desert alchemist, deep within the shifting dunes of the empty quarter, there lived a hermit named Jafar. It was whispered in the caravans that Jafar had discovered the sunstone, the legendary catalyst that could turn common lead into the purest, softest gold. Many seekers braved the heat to find his cave, bringing chests of lead and bags of coin, begging for the secret. But Jafar would only offer them a cup of cool water and a place in the shade. "I have no gold to give you," he would say, his eyes as clear as the morning sky. One night, a young thief hid behind a jagged rock, watching Jafar's cave. He saw the old man emerge under the light of the full moon. Jafar carried a heavy iron pot. He sat in the sand and, through a series of rhythmic breaths and silent gestures, He reached into the pot and pulled out a brick of shimmering, radiant gold. The thief's heart hammered against his ribs. He expected Jafar to hide the gold in a secret vault or carry it to the city to buy silk and spice. Instead, Jafar took a wooden spade, dug a deep hole in the sand, and buried the gold where no trail could find it. The thief could contain himself no longer. He sprang from the shadows. "Old man, you are a fool. You possess the wealth of kings, and you treat it like refuse. Why create what you will not use? Why hide what could make you the master of the world?" Jafar did not startle. He looked at the thief with a profound, quiet pity. "You think the gold is the prize," Jafar whispered. "The gold is merely the excrement of the process. I do not make gold to be rich. I make gold to prove to the silence that I am aligned with the sun. If I used the gold to buy the world, I would become a slave to the world's things. By burying it, I remain the master of the frequency. The secret is the source of the power. The moment the world owns my gold, it owns me, the gold of your life, your talents, your manifestations, your moments of profound realization must often be buried to retain its radioactive power. When you have a big idea and you immediately share it with a friend, you feel a rush of excitement. That rush is the energy of the idea leaving you. You have spent the manifestation before it had a chance to take root. You have traded the redwood tree for a handful of sawdust. The invisible act demands that you hold the heat. You must become a pressure cooker of intent. By keeping your moves invisible, you bypass the resistance of the collective consciousness. The world is full of default doubters, people who, often unconsciously, project their own limitations onto your blossoming reality. When you speak your intent, you invite their gravity to pull on your wings. When you act invisibly, you are already airborne before they even realize you have left the ground. The silent practice of the anonymous offering. To master the invisible act, you must perform the rite of the buried seed. This is a physical and metaphysical exercise in decoupling your worth from external recognition. Once a week, perform an act of significant value for another person or for the world, ensuring that it is physically impossible for you to be caught or thanked. It might be leaving an anonymous gift, repairing a broken thing in a public space, or sending a sum of money to a cause without a name attached. As you perform the act, notice the part of your ego that screams to be recognized. Notice the slight discomfort of not getting credit. This discomfort is the sound of your lack identity dying. As you walk away, say to the hidden room of your heart, "This is for the silence alone. The source that sees in secret is my only witness." Feel the vacuum you have created. Feel the strange, cool power that begins to pool in your chest. Because you have given without receiving a receipt from the world, the law of abundance now carries a debt to you. It will be repaid, not in the shallow currency of thanks, but in the deep currency of circumstance. Doors will open because you have become a person who can be trusted with the secrets of the infinite. This principle extends to your work and your path to prosperity. There is a deep, sacred joy in being the silent architect of your own empire. Imagine working on a project that will change your life, but telling everyone you are just resting. Imagine the internal laughter of knowing you are becoming a lion while the world still treats you as a lamb. This is not deception. It is psychic insulation. In the silence, your abundance becomes unmessable. It is not subject to the fluctuations of the market or the opinions of the critics, because they cannot criticize what they cannot see. You are building a fortress of frequency that is revealed to the world only when it is so massive that it can no longer be ignored. And by then, it is too late for anyone to stop it. The invisible act is the ultimate expression of trust. It is the statement that you do not need the world to hold your hand or validate your steps. You are walking with the law. You are whispering to the stars. The more you can do without seeking a witness, the more the universe will treat you as its primary witness. You will find that your private thoughts begin to manifest with startling speed. Why? Because the channel between your intent and the world is no longer clogged with the noise of other people's expectations. Keep your gold buried. Keep your looms humming in the dark. The sun does not need a publicist to prove it has risen. It simply warms the earth. Be the sun. Perform the invisible act. Let your life be the evidence. and let your lips remain sealed. V. The weight of wanting. There is a phantom that haunts the halls of the aspiring soul, a spectral thief that steals the very abundance it claims to seek. Its name is desire, but in the high tongue of the law, we call it the grip. You have been taught that to achieve, you must want with a burning intensity, that your hunger is the engine of your success. But look closely at the nature of hunger. It is the visceral scream of a void. To want a thing with desperation is to look the infinite in the eye and declare, with every fiber of your being, that you do not have it. The weight of wanting is the energetic density that anchors your dreams to the earth. When you want something too much, you create a psychic friction. You become like a man trying to catch a butterfly by lunging at it with heavy boots. The more force you apply, the faster the target flees. Abundance is a delicate frequency. It is drawn to the cool, spacious air of indifference, and it is repelled by the hot, stifling breath of need. To master the law of silent abundance, you must learn the art of the sovereign lean. You must be able to look at the throne of your desires and feel that while you would enjoy sitting upon it, you are perfectly content, standing exactly where you are. When you lose the need for the outcome loses its power to hide from you. The bird and the statue. In the garden of the forgotten palace, there stood a statue of a king, carved from a single block of white marble. The king was depicted in a pose of absolute rest, his hand open upon his knee, his eyes fixed on the horizon of forever. Every day, a young sculptor would come to the garden. He was obsessed with the bird of paradise, a legendary creature whose feathers were made of spun sunlight. He believed that if the bird would only land on his shoulder, he would be granted the genius to create a masterpiece that would live for eternity. He chased the bird with nets of silk. He called to it with whistles of silver. He threw seeds of pomegranate onto the grass to lure it down, but the bird only circled high above, a golden spark against the blue, never descending, never trusting. The sculptor grew thin and haggard. His wanting had become a cage that trapped him in a state of permanent lack. One afternoon, exhausted by his own pursuit, the sculptor sat at the base of the marble king. He watched the statue. He noticed that the king did not reach. The king did not call. The king did not even look at the bird. The king simply was. The sculptor closed his eyes. He let his breath slow until it matched the ancient rhythm of the stone. He let go of the masterpiece. He let go of the genius. He let go of the golden feathers. He became, for a moment, as still and as indifferent as the marble. In that hollow silence, there was a soft rustle of wings. A warmth settled on the king's open marble hand, and then another warmth settled on the sculptor's own shoulder. He did not open his eyes. He did not try to grab the bird. He simply sat in the grace of its presence. The bird had not landed because of his merit. It had landed because he had finally provided a place quiet enough for it to rest. Your wanting is a noise that startles the miracle. When you are desperate for money, for love, or for recognition, you are broadcasting a frequency of famine. You are telling the universe that your happiness is a hostage held by a future event. This creates a weight, a spiritual gravity, that makes your manifestations sluggish and heavy. The initiate practices holy indifference. This is not the coldness of the cynic, but the poise of the master. It is the ability to say, "It would be beautiful if this arrived, but I am already whole if it does not." This statement is the ultimate solvent for the blockages in your life. It removes the pressure. It thins the veil. When you release the grip, you move from a state of pursuit to a state of permission. You are no longer chasing the bird. You are becoming the garden, the silent practice of the dissolving tether. To shed the weight of wanting, you must perform the rite of the golden thread. This is a mental transmutation designed to sever the cord of desperation that binds you to your desires. Find a moment of deep solitude. In the hidden room of your mind, visualize your greatest desire as a luminous sphere floating a few feet in front of you. Now, look closely and see a thick, dark cord, tether extending from your solar plexus and latching onto that sphere. This cord is your wanting. Feel the tension in it. Feel how it pulls at your center, making you feel off balance and anxious. As long as that cord exists, the sphere cannot move toward you. because you are constantly pulling on it, and the law of resistance is pulling back just as hard. Imagine a pair of celestial shears in your hand. With a single, decisive motion, snip the cord. Watch as the tether falls away and dissolves into light. The sphere of your desire is now free. It may drift away, or it may stay still. Do not try to control it. Simply feel the relief in your own body as the tension at your solar plexus vanishes. You are now untethered. You are sovereign. Say to the silence, I release the need, and in doing so, I claim the reality. I am sufficient unto myself. Spend several minutes simply enjoying the feeling of being empty of desire. It is in this emptiness that the law of silent abundance finds its greatest resonance. Paradoxically, it is often in the moments immediately following this release, when you truly, deeply do not care if it happens, that the manifestation finally crystallizes into form. The world will tell you that this is giving up. The marketplace thrives on your dissatisfaction. It needs you to be hungry so that it can sell you the next meal. It fears the person who is satisfied in the silence, for that person cannot be manipulated. The weight of wanting is often disguised as ambition or drive. But true ambition is the joyous expansion of a full soul. Wanting is the desperate clutching of an empty one. You can tell the difference by how you feel in the waiting. If the absence of your desire causes you pain, you are wanting. If the thought of your desire causes you a quiet, humming joy even, if it hasn't appeared yet, you are possessing. To walk the path of the silent architect, you must become a master of your own emotional climate. You must learn to bluff the universe. When the physical world shows you a lack of abundance, you must behave with the casual ease of a billionaire. Not through outward spending, which is often just another form of wanting to be seen, but through the internal posture of post-victory. How would you breathe if the debt were already paid? How would you walk if the purpose were already found? That breath, that walk, that is the frequency that dissolves the weight. Remember, the universe is a mirror, but it is a mirror with a memory. If you stand before it and scream, I want, it will faithfully reflect back, you want, and you will remain in a state of wanting forever. If you stand before it in the silent, cool indifference of I have, the mirror has no choice but to produce the image of your possession. Put down the nets. Stop the silver whistles. The bird of paradise is already circling your garden. It is only waiting for you to become a statue of marble still, sovereign, and entirely unneeding. In the silence of your non-attachment, the abundance that has been hovering just beyond your reach will find its place to land. VIII. Protection from external doubt. The world is a chorus of small voices, and most of them are singing the song of no. From the moment you step outside the sanctuary of your hidden room, you are bombarded by the static of the collective mind that is rooted in scarcity, governed by fear, and suspicious of any light it did not kindle itself. This is the dust of the marketplace. It is not malicious. It is simply the byproduct of a billion souls living in the frequency of not enough. Protection from external doubt is the art of the psychic seal. It is the understanding that your internal vibration is a delicate flame that can be extinguished by the casual breath of a skeptic if it is not shielded. To share your vision with those who dwell in the valley of doubt is to invite their gravity to pull upon your stars. You have been taught that iron sharpens iron and that you should seek the counsel of others. But in the law of silent abundance, we know that a seed does not grow by being dug up and inspected by the neighbors. It grows by being left alone in the dark. To walk through the world as an initiate is to wear a cloak of sacred invisibility. You must learn to be in the world, but not of its frequency. You must learn to smile at the doubter, agree with the skeptic, and remain entirely unmoved in the depths of your own soul. The glass city, in the center of the great salt barren. There was once a city built entirely of crystal. The people of the glass city were masters of light. They grew gardens of jewels and drank from wells of liquid moonbeams. But surrounding the city was a desert of black sand, inhabited by tribes of the ashwalkers, people who believed that the sun was a myth and that the only reality was the suffocating dust. Every day, the winds would howl, carrying the black sand toward the crystal walls. The ashwalkers stood at the gates, shouting, "Why do you polish your walls? The dust will come for you. Your light is an illusion. Look at the sand, that is the only truth." The people of the glass city did not argue. They did not try to convert the ashwalkers or show them the beauty of the jewel gardens. Instead, they developed a second skin. Through a collective, silent resonance, they projected a field of energy just inches beyond the crystal surface. This field was so subtle it was invisible, but its frequency was so high that the black sand could not settle upon it. The moment a grain of dust touched the field, it was transmuted into a spark of light and fell away as harmless ash. The city remained brilliant, not because the desert stopped blowing, but because the city had stopped being porous to the desert's nature. The ashwalkers eventually grew tired and fell silent, for it is impossible to fight a wall that does not fight back. Your glass city is the reality you are building in the hidden room. The ashwalkers are the well-meaning friends, the cynical colleagues, and the fearful family members who project their own limitations onto your path. When they say, the economy is failing, or that dream is unrealistic, or you should be more practical, they are blowing black sand at your crystal walls. If you react, if you try to defend your vision or prove them wrong, you make your walls porous. You bring the sand inside. By defending your dream, you admit that it is vulnerable. By arguing with doubt, you give doubt a seat at your table. The law of silent abundance demands a sovereign silence. You must learn the holy nod, the ability to listen to the fears of the world. Acknowledge them with a polite smile, and realize that they have absolutely nothing to do with you. You are living in a different climate. You are governed by a different law. The silent practice of the diamond cloak. To protect your frequency from the erosion of external doubt, you must master the rite of the diamond cloak. This is a daily armor you don before entering the marketplace. Before you leave your home or engage with the world, stand in the center of your room. Close your eyes and breathe in the stillness. Visualize a thin, shimmering membrane of light beginning to form at the soles of your feet. This light is not soft. It is hard as diamond and clear as high-altitude air. See this membrane rise over your knees, your hips, and your heart until it seals over the crown of your head. This is your cloak of non-reaction. Now, imagine the most skeptical person you know standing before you, telling you all the reasons why you will fail. See their words leaving their mouth as small, gray pebbles. Watch as these pebbles hit your diamond cloak. They do not shatter the cloak. They simply slide off and fall into the abyss, making no sound. Feel the absolute safety of this boundary. You can hear the world. You can see the world. But the world cannot touch your frequency. Your abundance is sealed within. Say to yourself, my reality is not subject to the consensus. I am the only authority in this temple. There is a specific danger in the validation trap. Many seekers believe that if they can just get one person of status to believe in them, or if they can get their spouse to understand their vision, it will become more real. This is an illusion of the ego. Validation is the black sand of the ashwalkers, disguised as a gift. If your manifestation requires the belief of another to exist, then it is not a manifestation of your sovereign will. It is a permission slip from the world. True abundance is self-generated and self-validated. It is a secret between you and the infinite. In fact, the more people who disbelieve in your path, the more potent your path becomes, provided you remain silent. Their disbelief acts as a pressure that compacts your resolve, turning your internal coal into diamond. When you succeed in the face of a world that said no, you prove that you are no longer a slave to the collective reflection. The art of the mask, to protect your work. You must often practice the art of the mask. This is the decision to look normal to the world, while being extraordinary within. If you are working on a project that will bring you millions, tell the world you are trying a few new things. If you are experiencing a profound spiritual awakening, tell the world you have been sleeping better lately. By minimizing the external appearance of your growth, you prevent the eye of envy from focusing its destructive glare upon you. Envy is a form of concentrated doubt. When people see you rising, their own not enough frequency feels threatened. They will unconsciously try to tether you back to the ground with their words and energy. By wearing the mask of the ordinary, You move through the world like a ghost. You achieve your ends without friction. You harvest your abundance in the dark, and by the time you bring it into the light, it is so massive and so established that no amount of doubt can diminish it. The silence of the inner circle. Be ruthless with your inner circle. Abundance is a high-voltage current, and most people are not wired to handle it. If you have people in your life who consistently broadcast lack, who complain about the world, or who mock the mystical, you must move them to the outer courts of your life. You do not need to judge them. You do not need to break up with them in a dramatic scene. Simply stop inviting them into the inner sanctum. Stop sharing your invisible acts with them. Stop looking for their approval. Your frequency is your only true wealth. Protect it with the ferocity of a lioness guarding her cubs. When you encounter doubt in the world, remember, the doubter is not talking about you. They are narrating their own prison. When someone says, "It's impossible," they are simply saying, "In my world, with my tools and my lack of faith, I cannot see a way." Thank them for their report from the prison, and then return to your palace. The diamond cloak is always available. The glass city is always standing. You are the architect, the guard, and the sovereign. The black sand of the desert may blow, but it will never touch the jewel gardens of the silent soul. 7. The law of non-resistance. There is a violence in the way the world pursues its bread. You have been raised in a liturgy of crushing it, of breaking through, and of fighting for your place at the table. This is the philosophy of the oarsman, who believes that if he stops rowing for a single breath, the river will swallow him whole. But in the high court of the law of silent abundance, we recognize that the struggle is the leak. To fight against the current of your life is to declare that the universe is your adversary. The law of non-resistance is the ultimate mastery of the yield. It is the understanding that the shortest distance between 2 points is not a straight line of force, but a curve of grace. When you resist a circumstance, when you label it bad, unfair, or a setback, you give it a solid form in your reality. You hook into the very thing you wish to avoid, feeding it your vital electricity. Non-resistance is the act of becoming psychically transparent, allowing the shadows of the world to pass through you without finding a single hook to catch upon. To practice the yield is to realize that the universe is not something you must conquer. It is a river that already knows the way to the sea. Your only task is to stop building dams. The river's disciple. In the mountain kingdom of Oros, there was a young man named Kavi who sought the secret of the unstoppable force. He trained with the great wrestlers, learning to meet strength with strength. He studied the stonemasons, learning how to crack the hardest granite with a heavy sledge. He believed that abundance was a fortress that had to be stormed. One day, Kavi found an old master sitting on a rock in the middle of a rushing mountain stream. The water was white and violent, crashing against the boulders with enough force to shatter bone. Yet the master sat in the center of the spray, as relaxed as a child in a cradle. "Master Kavi," shouted over the roar, "how do you survive the weight of this current? How do you keep the river from crushing you?" The master did not speak. He pointed to a fallen branch that had just entered the rapids. The branch did not fight the rocks. When it hit a stone, it did not push. It simply turned and allowed the water to carry it around the obstacle. It dipped under the surface. It spun in the eddies, and within moments, it was floating peacefully in the calm pool below the falls. The master then pointed to a rigid, ancient oak tree on the bank. The oak was strong and stubborn. It resisted the wind and the rising flood with all its might. As Kavi watched, a great surge of water hit the bank, undermining the oak's roots. With a terrifying crack, the strong tree snapped and was torn to pieces by the very force it had tried to defy. "The branch reaches the sea," the master whispered, his voice cutting through the noise like a silver needle. "The tree becomes driftwood. To be unstoppable, you must first stop stopping the world. Your problems are the rocks in the stream. Your anxiety, your hustle, and your mental rehearsals of how to fix your life are the rigid roots of the oak tree. When you resist your current situation, when you complain about your lack of funds or the delays in your projects, you are planting yourself in the path of the flood. You are inviting the universe to break you so that you may finally learn to flow. Non-resistance is the silent pivot. It is the ability to look at a negative event and refuse to give it the dignity of your opposition. If a door closes, the initiate does not bang on it until their knuckles bleed. They simply turn and notice the window that the wind of that closing door just blew open. This is the frequency of effortless command. When you stop resisting, you stop being a target. The law of opposition cannot find you if you have no push within you. You become like the air, impossible to grasp, impossible to defeat, and everywhere at once. The silent practice of the water body. To embody the law of non-resistance, you must learn to desolidify your reaction to the world. This is the right of the fluid form. The next time you encounter a blockage, a bill you didn't expect, a person who rudely interrupts your peace, or a delay in a cherished plan, do not tighten your muscles. Do not sharpen your thoughts. Instead, close your eyes for 3 breaths. Visualize your physical body not as flesh and bone, but as a column of clear, rushing water. See the problem approaching you like a heavy, dark stone thrown into your stream. Instead of the stone hitting you and causing a bruise, watch as the stone enters the water of your being. It sinks through you. It passes through your chest, your spine, and out your back, falling harmlessly to the bottom of the riverbed. You are unchanged. You are still flowing. You have not lost a single drop of your essence to the stone. Say to the hidden room, I am the water. Nothing can catch me. I yield to the path, and the path carries me home. As you open your eyes, notice how the problem has lost its heat. Because you did not meet it with resistance, it has no hook in your nervous system. You are now free to act with the cool, calm intelligence of the river, rather than the frantic heat of the victim. In the marketplace of abundance, non-resistance manifests as the path of least friction. Most people believe that the harder a thing is to achieve, the more valuable it must be. They wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor. But in the law of silent abundance, we know that the hard way is almost always the wrong way. If a project requires constant, grinding effort and pushing uphill, it is a sign that you are out of alignment with the current. Abundance is natural. It is the default state of the universe. Have you ever seen the grass struggle to grow? Have you ever seen the stars work hard to shine? The struggle is a human invention, a byproduct of the ego's need to feel responsible for its success. The initiate learns to look for the open channel. If one path is blocked, they do not see it as a failure. They see it as the universe's way of nudging the branch toward a swifter, deeper part of the river. When you practice non-resistance, you begin to experience synchronicity, the phenomenon where the right people, the right amounts of money, and the right opportunities appear exactly when they are needed, with zero effort on your part. To the world, this looks like luck. To you, it is simply the natural result of moving at the speed of the current. The sovereignty of as it is. To be non-resistant is to accept the now with total, sovereign indifference. This is the most difficult, silent practice of all. It requires you to look at your bank account, your empty calendar, or your quiet phone and say, this is as it is. And it is very good. By accepting the now without resistance, you strip it of its power to persist. Resistance is the glue that keeps unwanted circumstances stuck to your life. When you stop fighting what is, you unstick yourself from the past. You become greased for the future. This is why the law is silent. If you tell the world you are accepting your lack, they will think you have given up. They will tell you to get angry or get hungry. They do not understand that your acceptance is actually a high-level strategic withdrawal. You are pulling your energy back from the rock so that you can flow around it. You are the branch. You are the water. You are the current. Stop trying to be the oak. Stop trying to break the world to your will. The world is too big to be broken, but it is perfectly designed to be flowed through. When you master the yield, you find that you no longer need to seek your abundance. You simply drift into it, and as you arrive, you will realize that the river was always taking you there, even when you were too busy rowing to notice. Yield to the silence. Flow with the law. Reach the sea. 8. The alchemy of the void. The world is terrified of the empty. You have been conditioned to see a blank calendar as a failure, a silent phone as an omen of obsolescence, and a moment of stillness as a vacuum that must be filled with the frantic noise of productivity. You live in a culture that worships the harvest but despises the fallow field. Yet, in the high science of the law, we know that the void is not an absence of things. It is the laboratory of all things. The alchemy of the void is the mastery of the space between. It is the understanding that the most potent part of the symphony is the rest between the notes, and the most useful part of the vessel is the emptiness within its walls. When you encounter a period in your life where nothing is happening, where the money has not yet arrived, the lover has not appeared, and the path forward is obscured by a thick, silver mist, you are not in a desert. You are in the womb of the infinite. To the uninitiated, the void is a place of anxiety. To the sage, the void is the pregnant silence. It is the state of pure potentiality, where the wave of your desire has not yet been forced to become the particle of a singular reality. In the void, you are everything. You are everywhere. You are the gold before it is struck into a coin, the potter's breath. On the outskirts of a bustling trade city, there lived a master potter named Oren. His shop was sought after by princes and merchants, for his jars were said to keep water cool in the desert and wine sweet for a decade. One afternoon, a young apprentice, eager to prove his worth, brought Oren a jar he had crafted. It was thick-walled, heavy with clay, and decorated with intricate carvings of vines and lions. "Master," the apprentice said, "I have used the finest silt and spent 3 days carving the exterior. Surely this is a vessel of great value." Oren took the jar. He did not look at the carvings. Instead, he reached his hand inside. His fingers hit the bottom almost immediately. The walls were so thick and the decorations so dense that there was barely room for a cup of water. Oren picked up a simple, unadorned bowl from his own bench. Its walls were as thin as a leaf, and its interior was a vast, smooth curve of nothingness. "You have built a monument to your own effort," Oren whispered. "But you have forgotten the purpose of the craft. The world does not buy the clay. It buys the space. A vessel is only as good as the nothing it can hold. Your jar is full of yourself, and therefore it can hold nothing of the world." Oren blew a single, soft breath into his own bowl. The sound resonated, a low, hollow hum that seemed to vibrate the very air of the workshop. The music is in the hollow. The abundance is in the void. If you do not learn to love the emptiness, you will never have the room to be filled. Your life is the vessel. Most of your hustle, your planning, and your mental chatter are the thick, heavy clay walls that the apprentice built. You are so full of the how, the when, and the why, that there is no room for the universe to pour in the what. When you experience a dry spell, the law is asking you to thin your walls. It is carving out the interior of your soul so that you can hold a greater volume of light. If you panic during the void, if you try to fill the silence with busy work or desperate networking, you are essentially throwing rocks into your own bowl. You are making yourself small by trying to look busy. The initiate treats the void as a sacred interval. When the external world goes quiet, it is a signal to increase the internal resonance. It is a time to become hollow so that the breath of the infinite can move through you and create the music of your next manifestation. The silent practice of the inner horizon. To master the alchemy of the void, you must learn to inhabit the point of zero. This is a visualization designed to strip away the clutter of your identity so that you can experience the wealth of your essence. Retire to your hidden room. Sit in total darkness, if possible. Close your eyes and imagine that you are floating in the center of a vast, starless space. There is no floor beneath you, no ceiling above you. There are no sounds, no smells, and no weights. For a moment, strip away your name, strip away your history, strip away your bank balance, your relationships, and your physical body. What is left? There is a something that remains. A steady, pulsing awareness that does not need a name to exist. This is the void self. It is the part of you that is already infinitely wealthy because it is one with the source of all wealth. As you float in this nothingness, feel the expansion of your being. Because there is nothing to push against you, you can grow to the size of a galaxy. Say to the darkness, "I am the void, and the void is the womb. I am empty of the small, and therefore full of the all." Stay in this state until the fear of the empty is replaced by a sense of luxurious space. When you return to the world of shapes and numbers, carry this hollowness with you. When you look at your bank account or your calendar, do not see lack, see available space. There is a profound difference between being empty and being lonely. Loneliness is the ego mourning the absence of external mirrors. Emptiness is the soul rejoicing in the absence of external distractions. In the marketplace, the void often appears as the lull. You have launched a project. You have set your intention. You have performed your invisible acts, and then nothing. No sales, no calls, no signs. The uninitiated see this as a sign of failure, and they pivot, which is often just a fancy word for running away in a different direction. The initiate knows that the lull is the period of gestation. Think of the seed in the earth. For weeks, there is nothing to see. To the observer, the dirt is just dirt. But beneath the surface, the void is working. The seed is shattering. The roots are finding the water. The pressure is building. If you dig up the seed to check on it, you kill the potential. The void is where the law of silent abundance does its most heavy lifting. It is rearranging the atoms of your reality. It is moving people you haven't met yet into positions where they can help you. It is clearing out the old to make room for the new. The sovereignty of the weight. To walk through the void with dignity is the ultimate test of the sovereign. Can you maintain the frequency of a king while sitting in an empty throne room? Can you maintain the resonance of a millionaire while your pockets hold only air? If you can, you have mastered the alchemy. You have proven to the universe that your abundance is not a reaction to external stimuli, but a cause that you generate from within. When you stop fearing the void, you become dangerous to the system of scarcity. The world can no longer control you through the threat of nothing, because you have discovered that nothing is the very stuff that miracles are made of. You will find that the more comfortable you become with the empty spaces in your life, the faster they tend to fill. It is as if the universe cannot stand to see such a perfect, clean vessel remain empty. It rushes in to fill the available space with treasures that match the high frequency of your silence. The next time the world goes quiet, do not reach for your phone. Do not check your email. Do not ask why. Instead, take a deep, hollow breath. Smile at the nothing. You are a vessel of thin glass and infinite depth. The potter is breathing into you. The music is about to begin. 9. The hushed harvest. There is a frantic madness in the way the world gauges its gains. The merchant counts his coins with a clatter that alerts the thief. The farmer shouts his yield from the hilltop, inviting the locust and the taxman. They believe that for an abundance to be real, it must be loud. But you, initiate, are learning the liturgy of the hushed harvest. This is the art of recognizing the arrival while it is still a whisper, and keeping the secret of your growth until the fruit is so heavy it bows the branch. The world waits for the landslide to acknowledge the mountain shift. It waits for the $1 million contract to admit to prosperity. But the law of silent abundance operates in the realm of the subtle increment. To master this chapter is to develop the eyes of a hawk in the twilight, to see the small, quiet flickers of evidence that your internal frequency is successfully rewriting the external mirror. If you ignore the small arrivals because they are not yet the big one, you insult the law. You tell the universe that you do not trust its process. To harvest in silence is to protect the potency of the crop. It is the realization that the most stable wealth is that which grows in the shade, away from the scorching heat of public expectation and the drying winds of others' envy. The gardener of the night. In the high, misty plateaus of the Silver Range, there lived a gardener named Thorn. While the villagers in the valley below competed to grow the largest pumpkins and the brightest sunflowers to show at the summer fair, Thorn tended a hidden terrace behind a veil of falling water. He did not plant seeds that shouted in the sun. He planted the lunar lily, a flower said to bloom only in the absolute blue of a moonless midnight. The lunar lily did not emerge with a sudden burst. For months, it looked like nothing more than a silver-gray pebble sitting in the damp moss. The villagers would climb the path sometimes to mock him. "Thorn, your garden is a graveyard of stones," they would say. "Come down to the valley where the sun actually does its work. Our corn is head high, and our squash is bursting the skin." Thorn would only smile and continue to mist his pebbles with water from the sacred spring. He knew something the villagers did not. The stones were absorbing the frequency of the stars. One night, when the valley was asleep and the fair winners were snoring over their rotting pumpkins, Thorn's terrace began to hum. One by one, the silver pebbles unfurled. They did not make a sound, but they emitted a scent so intoxicatingly sweet that it could cure a broken heart, and a light so pure it could guide a traveler through the thickest fog. Thorn did not call the village to see. He did not enter the fair. He sat in the center of his hushed harvest, bathed in the glow of a wealth that did not need a market to give it value. Because he had not sought the sun's approval, the night had given him its crown. Your life is currently full of silver pebbles. These are the small synchronicities, the unexpected $5 bills, the sudden moments of clarity, or the strange peace that settles over you when you should be worried. The world calls these coincidences. The initiate calls them the first fruits. When you experience a small victory, the ego wants to broadcast it. It wants to say, "Look, my manifestation is working." But the moment you speak it to the uninitiated, you flash dry the moisture of the miracle. You invite the skeptical gaze of the world to look at your pebble, and their doubt acts like a frost. The hushed harvest requires you to see the evidence and keep it in the hidden room. You must learn to give thanks in the dark. By acknowledging the small arrival silently, you signal to the law that you are a reliable receiver. You are telling the infinite, "I see what you are doing. I recognize the pattern. Keep building." This creates a feedback loop of mounting pressure. Because you are not leaking the joy through speech, the joy compacts and attracts more of its kind. The silent practice of the inventory of grace. To sharpen your vision for the hushed harvest, you must perform the rite of the whispered tally. This is a practice of internal accounting that must never be written on paper where another might find it. Every evening, as the light fades and you prepare to enter the silence of sleep, sit on the edge of your bed. Recall 3 small arrivals from the day events that, to a normal person, would seem insignificant, but to you are proof of the law. Perhaps a stranger smiled at you with an unusual warmth. Perhaps you found a parking space exactly where you needed it. Perhaps a thought of lack arose, and you successfully yielded to it until it dissolved. For each arrival, do not shout hallelujah. Do not tell your spouse. Instead, close your eyes and feel a warm, golden spark ignite in your solar plexus. Say to your own heart, "The tide is coming in. I see the foam upon the sand." This practice does 2 things. It trains your reticular activating system to look for abundance evidence, and it builds a mound of momentum in the unseen realm. You are gathering the pebbles of Thorn's garden. You are proving that you are awake. The hush in the harvest is your greatest protection against the reversal of fortune. Wealth that arrives loudly often leaves loudly. When you announce a win prematurely, you create a debt of expectation in the minds of others. They begin to watch you. They begin to ask, "What's next?" This creates a subtle, external pressure that forces you back into the seeker frequency. You start working to maintain the image of success, rather than allowing the success to expand naturally. The hushed harvest allows you to become wealthy, powerful, and peaceful under the radar. Imagine a bank account that grows while you tell the world you are getting by. Imagine a health that radiates while you remain humble about your routine. This is the ultimate power move. It keeps you in the position of the observer, rather than the performer. When your abundance is a secret, it is entirely yours. You do not owe the world a percentage of your joy in the form of an explanation. You are thorn in his garden, surrounded by the lunar lilies. The sovereignty of the unseen scale. How do you know if your harvest is truly abundant if you aren't comparing it to the valley? The initiate uses an internal scale. You measure your success not by the number in the mirror, but by the stability of your frequency. If you can look at $1,000 with the same calm, hushed appreciation that you look at $1 million, you have mastered the scale. If you can see the silver pebble and know that it contains the DNA of the silver mountain, you are no longer a slave to the size of the manifestation. The universe is infinite. To the law, there is no difference between a grain of sand and a planet. Both require the same fundamental shift in frequency to appear. The only thing that makes one harder than the other is your own belief in difficulty. By practicing the hushed harvest, with the small things, you prime the pump for the massive. You develop the spiritual muscles to hold a high-voltage reality without being burned by it. The world will continue to shout about its pumpkins. They will win their ribbons, and they will watch their crops rot in the autumn rain. But you, sitting behind the veil of the waterfall, will be tending a garden that is eternal. Your harvest is coming. It is arriving in the space between. It is appearing in the coincidences and the luck and the strange ease. Watch for it, smile at it, but for the sake of the power, do not tell a soul. The pebbles are unfurling. The scent of the night bloom is rising. The silence is your storehouse. Chapter 10. The Resonance of the Ancestors. You are not a solitary ghost wandering a desert of your own making. You have been led to believe that your abundance is a personal achievement, a solitary tower you must build brick by grueling brick. This is the ego's heavy burden, the myth of the self-made, but in the hallowed silence of the law, we recognize a deeper truth. You are the tip of a spear that has been traveling through time for 1,000 years. You are the current expression of a vast, subterranean river of intent. The resonance of the ancestors is the recognition that prosperity is a lineage, not a lottery. Within your blood and your spirit, there resides the memory of plenty. For every ancestor who struggled in the winter, there was one who mastered the harvest. For every one who lived in the shadow of a tyrant, there was one who discovered the sovereignty of the soul. When you tap into this resonance, you stop trying to create abundance from nothing, and instead begin to inherit the frequency that is already your birthright. To master this chapter is to stop acting like a beggar at the gates of your own palace. It is to realize that the code of abundance is written into your very cells, waiting for a high enough frequency of silence to be decoded. The inheritor of the unmarked map in the dusty archives of the sun-drenched city. There lived a youth named Elian. His family had fallen into ruin, leaving him with nothing but a tattered piece of parchment passed down through 7 generations. It was called the Map of the Golden Well, but to Elian's eyes, it was a failure. The parchment was blank. There were no landmarks, no X to mark the spot, no directions to follow. Elian spent his days working as a scribe, bitter and weary, cursing the ancestors who had left him a map to nowhere. He tried to draw his own maps. He followed the rumors of gold in the mountains and the whispers of silver in the sea. Each time, he returned emptier than before. One evening, while sitting by a low fire, Elian held the parchment in his hands. He stopped looking at the surface. He stopped trying to find the path. Instead, he simply rested his palms against the old, yellowed skin and closed his eyes. He thought of the 7 men and women who had held this same paper before him. He felt their breath, their steady heartbeats, and their unwavering belief that the well existed. In that state of deep, respectful silence, the parchment began to warm. A faint, golden glow emanated from within the fibers. Elian realized that the map was not a drawing. It was a mirror. As his internal frequency shifted to match the faith of the forefathers, the lines began to appear, but they did not show a distant mountain. They showed the floorboards of the very room he sat in. He pried up the wood and found not a chest of coins, but a deep, ancient spring that had been capped centuries ago. The water was pure, endless, and more valuable than gold in that arid land. He had not found the treasure. He had simply aligned himself with the legacy that was already beneath his feet. Your unmarked map is your current life. You look at your circumstances and see a blank page, or worse, a page of debt and delay. You believe you must go out there to find the wealth. But the law of silent abundance teaches that the wealth is an occupied space within your lineage. Somewhere in your history, the frequency of abundance was mastered. It may have been a great-grandmother who knew the secret of the loaves and fishes, or a distant forebear who understood the language of the wind. That mastery did not die. It simply went silent, waiting for an heir who was quiet enough to listen. When you practice the resonance, you are not asking for a favor. You are claiming a sovereign inheritance. You are saying to the universe, I am the one they waited for. I am the vessel for the return of the light. The silent practice of the blood lineage luminary. To connect with this ancestral frequency, you must perform the rite of the golden thread. This is not an act of ancestor worship, but an act of frequency retrieval. Find a place of absolute stillness. Visualize a thread of pure, liquid gold extending backward from your heart. See it passing through your parents, your grandparents, and back through 1,000 generations until it disappears into the primordial light of the first dawn. Now, call upon the Master of Abundance within that line. You do not need a name. Simply sense the presence of the ancestor who most fully embodied the law of silent abundance. Feel their hand on your shoulder. They are not giving you their wealth. They are giving you their vibration. They are showing you how it feels to walk the earth without the fear of not enough. Let that feeling flow down the golden thread and into your chest. Notice how it changes your posture. Notice how it stills the seeker's anxiety in your gut. Say to the hidden room, I stand upon the shoulders of giants. Their harvest is my seed. I accept the mantle of the abundant air. Hold this resonance as you go about your day. When you make a financial decision or start a new project, do not do it as small you. Do it as the 1,000-year heir. Notice how the weight of the lineage gives your actions a quiet, terrifying authority. The world wants you to believe you are an orphan of fate. It wants you to feel disconnected, for a disconnected soul is easily sold to. If you believe you are alone, you will hustle until you break. But when you realize you are part of a sacred continuity, the need to prove vanishes. You do not need to prove you are worthy of abundance any more than a prince needs to prove he is worthy of the crown. The crown is the correct size for his head because he was born to wear it. The resonance of the ancestors acts as a stabilizer for your frequency. When the external world becomes chaotic, when markets shift or plans fail, you can reach back through the golden thread and find the still point of those who survived far worse with their spirit intact. The sovereignty of the unbroken chain. This principle also carries a sacred responsibility. You are the redeemer of the lineage. Every time you choose silence over noise, every time you choose trust over fear, and every time you inhabit the hidden room, you are healing the lack memory of those who came before you. You are retroactively prospering your ancestors. When you manifest abundance in the past tense of your lineage, you clear the path for those who will follow you. You become the new ancestor, the one who broke the cycle of seeking and established the law of having. This is why the law is silent. You do not need to tell your living family about this work. In fact, it is often better if you don't. They may still be caught in the ashwalker frequency of the black sand. Your work is internal alchemy. As you shift your resonance, you will notice that the luck of your entire family begins to change. The curses of poverty and the patterns of failure begin to dissolve, not through your preaching, but through your presence. You are the master pillar. Because you have anchored yourself to the golden thread, the entire structure of your lineage is strengthened. Walk with the dignity of the heir. Speak with the brevity of the sovereign. The map is no longer unmarked. The lines are appearing. The well is beneath your feet. The ancestors are not watching you to see if you will fail. They are leaning in to hear the music you will make with the silence they left you. Chapter 11. The Sacrament of Spending. The world treats the exchange of currency as a war of attrition. You have been taught to hoard your gold as a soldier guards a fortress, fearing that every coin that leaves your hand is a piece of your life force that will never return. You live in a liturgy of clutching, where the act of payment is felt as a wound, and the receipt is a record of loss. This is the poverty of the grip. It is a frequency of constriction that chokes the very throat of abundance, signaling to the universe that your supply is finite, fragile, and fleeing. The sacrament of spending is the radical transmutation of the transaction. It is the realization that money is not a solid object to be trapped, but a current of light to be directed. In the high law, we do not pay bills and we do not lose money. We perform an act of sacred circulation. To master this chapter is to move from the energy of the spender to the energy of the source. When you release currency with the correct internal resonance, you are not diminishing your storehouse. You are priming the pump of the infinite. To spend in silence is to act with the nonchalance of the sea. The ocean does not mourn the water that evaporates into the clouds, for it knows the rain is already on its way back to the shore. The merchant of the well. In the burning heart of the saffron desert, there was a village built around a single, ancient well. Most of the villagers were hoarders of the drop. They kept their water in jars, sealed with wax, hidden in the darkest corners of their cellars. They drank only enough to keep the tongue from cracking, and they looked at their neighbors with suspicious, thirsty eyes. Among them lived a merchant named Omar. Omar did not sell silks or spices. He sold the water from the well. But his method was a madness to the rest of the village. Every morning, Omar would draw 10 buckets of water. He would keep one for his hearth, and the other 9 he would pour into the dry, cracked earth of the public square. "You are a criminal," the villagers shouted. "You waste the life of the village. One day the well will go dry, and you will be the first to wither." Omar only smiled, his skin as supple as a ripened plum. "The well does not give water because it is full," he whispered. "The well stays full because it gives water. The earth is not a grave, it is a mouth." A great drought came. The clouds turned to brass, and the heat cracked the stones. One by one, the jars in the cellars went dry. The wax seals failed, and the hoarded water turned bitter and foul. The villagers gathered at the well, trembling, only to find the bucket hitting dry sand. But in the square where Omar had poured his waste, a miracle occurred. A grove of date palms had quietly taken root, their leaves vibrant and green, shielding a small, bubbling spring that had risen to meet the merchant's offering. Omar had not lost his water. He had merely moved it from a fragile jar into an eternal system. He had spent his way into a sanctuary. Your bank account is the jar. Your fear of spending is the wax seal. When you hold your money with a trembling hand, you turn the living water of abundance into the stagnant pool of lack. You are telling the law of silent abundance that you do not trust the well of the infinite to refill. The sacrament of spending demands that you treat every transaction as a blessing of the flow. Whether you are buying a loaf of bread, paying a tax, or investing in a dream, you must do so with the internal posture of the rich provider. This is not an invitation to recklessness or the hustle of consumerism. It is a shift in the quality of the release. When the money leaves your hand, it must do so with a silent, internal command. Go forth and nourish the world, then return to me tenfold, for the source is the silent practice of the golden hand. To break the grip of the hoarder, you must learn the right of the no-nutach release. This is a practice that turns the mundane act of commerce into a high-voltage manifestation. The next time you are required to part with money, especially for something that usually triggers lack anxiety, such as a utility bill or an unexpected repair, do not look at the numbers with dread. In the hidden room of your mind, visualize the money not as paper or digits, but as a golden liquid. As you authorize the payment or hand over the cash, imagine this liquid flowing through the recipient, lighting them up, providing for their family, and then flowing out into the wider world like a river. See that river looping back toward you, picking up more gold as it travels, until it enters your own vessel from behind, filling you even as you pour. Say to the silence, "I am a channel, not a reservoir. What I release, I increase." The well is deep, and the water is sweet. Feel the physical sensation of letting go. Notice the relaxation in your chest. By refusing to feel the loss, you have successfully bluffed the mirror of reality. You have behaved like a person of infinite wealth, and the universe is now compelled to match that behavior with physical evidence in the marketplace. This manifests as sovereign generosity. This is the ability to tip the server with a quiet, hushed joy, or to pay a debt before it is even due. Not to be seen, not to be thanked, but to prove to yourself that you are a child of the law. Most people spend from a place of requirement. They spend because they have to. This makes them victims of the transaction. They initiate spends from a place of choice. Even when paying a mandatory tax, the initiate chooses to see it as a sacrament of participation in the collective abundance. By reclaiming the power of the choice, you become the master of the money. Money is a sensitive energy. It flees from those who fear it, and it flocks to those who treat it with a calm, appreciative indifference. The sovereignty of the hidden tip. A specific application of this sacrament is the anonymous seed. Once a month, spend a small amount of money in a way that provides no direct benefit to you and offers no chance for recognition. Leave a coin where a child might find it. Pay for the coffee of the person behind you and leave before they know. Tuck a bill into a book in a public library. As you do this, feel the absolute invisibility of the act. You are pouring water into the square. Just like Omar, you are telling the law that you are so abundant that you can afford to lose money without a second thought. This leaks a specific frequency into your life, the frequency of the unexpected windfall. Because you have planted unearned seeds in the world, the universe will begin to provide you with unearned harvests. You will find that money begins to arrive from sources you did not cultivate, through luck and coincidence. The silence of the price. To protect this sacrament, you must also practice the silence of the price. Stop complaining about how much things cost. Stop discussing the high price of living with the ashwalkers in the marketplace. When you talk about things being expensive, you are vibrating at the frequency of I cannot afford. If a thing is beyond your current means, do not say I can't afford it. Say, I am currently choosing to direct my flow elsewhere. This keeps you in the position of the sovereign architect. It keeps the hidden room full of the light of choice rather than the shadow of restriction. You are the merchant of the well. You are the golden hand. The world will continue to clutch its pennies until they turn to dust. They will live in the famine of the jar. But you will walk the desert with the spring at your heels. Every time you spend, you are not losing, you are sowing. Every time you release, you are not emptying, you are expanding. The well is not a static pool. It is a conversation between you and the deep. Keep the conversation flowing. Pour the water. The date palms are already growing in the square. Chapter 12. The Transmutation of Envy. In the shadowed corridors of the human heart, there sits a sentinel of glass, cold and sharp. Its name is envy. You have been taught to fear this feeling, to repress it as a sin, or to use it as a jagged spur to outdo those who possess what you do not. The world views the success of another as a theft from the collective beta signal that there is less for you because there is more for them. This is the famine of comparison, a frequency that acts as a leaden weight upon your own manifestation. For to envy a thing is to declare to the universe that you are separate from it. The transmutation of envy is the high-level alchemy of turning the green fire into the golden light. It is the realization that you cannot see that which you do not already contain. In the law of silent abundance, the success of another is not a threat. It is a proximity alert. It is the universe showing you a preview of coming attractions in your own life. To master this chapter is to stop looking at your neighbor's harvest as a reason for grief, and to start seeing it as the evidence of the possible. To transmute in silence is to remain unmoved while the world screams of its firsts and its bests. It is the ability to look at a king and say, I recognize my own crown upon your head. The two mirrors. In the hall of the infinite, there stood two mirrors, placed exactly face to face. Between them sat a single, small candle. The first mirror, named Cora, looked at the candle and then looked into the second mirror. She saw the light reflecting back and grew angry. The other mirror has stolen my flame, Cora cried. Look at how brightly it glows. It possesses the light that should be mine alone. If I could only dim the other's reflection, I would be the most radiant object in the hall. Cora began to tilt herself, trying to catch the light in such a way that it would not reach her brother. She strained and shifted, but the more she moved, the more the light became distorted, flickering and weak. In her effort to win the light, she lost her alignment with the source. The second mirror, named Soul, did not look at Cora with malice. Soul understood the law of the face. He realized that if he saw light in the other mirror, it was only because he was himself a vessel for that same light. If my brother glows, Soul whispered, it is proof that the candle is burning between us. His brilliance is the measurement of my own potential. Soul remained perfectly still. He polished his surface in the silence, becoming more and more transparent. As he did, the reflection between the two mirrors began to multiply. Instead of one candle, there were 1,000. Instead of two mirrors, there was a corridor of infinite suns. By celebrating the light he saw over there, Soul had unlocked the infinity right here. The person who has achieved what you desire is your soul. They are a mirror placed in your path by the law to show you that the frequency you have been cultivating in your hidden room is reaching its boiling point. If you feel the sting of envy, you are acting like Cora. You are assuming the light is theirs, and not the light. The law of silent abundance is not local. It does not recognize the boundary between me and them. When you see a colleague receive a promotion, or a friend find their twin flame, or a stranger manifest a windfall, you are literally seeing the edge of the storm. The rain is falling on the neighbor's field, which means the clouds are directly over yours. If you curse the rain on their field, you blow the clouds away from your own. The silent practice of the proximity blessing. To transmute the frequency of envy, you must learn the right of the shared sun. This must be done with absolute internal honesty, for the law cannot be fooled by a forced smile. The next time you hear of someone else's great fortune, especially in an area where you feel lacking, do not look away. Do not offer a hollow congratulation while your stomach churns. Instead, go immediately to your hidden room. Visualize the person and their success. See it as a bright, pulsing orb of light. Now, reach out with your internal hands and draw some of that light toward yourself, not to take it from them, but to warm yourself by it. Feel the sensation of me too. Say to the silence, I see the light. I recognize the light, because it is there. I know it is here. I thank the universe for the preview. This practice shifts you from the frequency of the outsider to the frequency of the participant. You are no longer watching a movie. You are stepping onto the set. By blessing their harvest, you command the law to produce a similar crop in your own life. You are telling the mirror that you are aligned with that specific version of reality in the marketplace. This manifests as vibrational affiliation. Most people distance themselves from the wealthy or the successful out of a sense of unworthiness or judgment. They call the rich greedy or the lucky undeserving. This is a form of spiritual suicide. By judging the possessor, you banish the possession. You create a rule of law in your own mind that says, to have this thing is to be a bad person. And since your soul wishes to be good, it will ensure you never have it. The initiate does the opposite. You move toward the heat. If there is a place where abundance is congregating, a certain neighborhood, a certain circle, a certain caliber of excellence, you inhabit it mentally. You do not go there to network or to climb. You go there to be. You allow their frequency to rub off on you, treating their success as a free battery charge for your own intent. The sovereignty of already done. Transmutation is the act of deciding that the other is simply a future you. When you see a beautiful home, you do not say, I wish I had that. You say, thank you for showing me my new floor plan. When you see someone living with absolute freedom, you say, I appreciate this reminder of how I move through the world. This is the sacred arrogance of the law. It removes the gap. It eliminates the waiting. By refusing to be surprised or intimidated by the success of others, you prove to the universe that you are frequency compatible with greatness. The silence of the celebration. To protect the transmutation, you must practice the silence of the celebration. Do not join in the gossip of the fall. When a public figure fails or a successful person loses their footing, the ashwalkers celebrate. They feel a sense of relief because the gap between them and the great has been closed. The initiate mourns a fall, even in an enemy. Why? Because you know that all abundance is connected. To celebrate a loss of frequency in another is to invite a loss of frequency in yourself. It is to agree with the law of scarcity. Instead, stay silent. Keep your mirror polished. If the world is a hall of mirrors, then your job is to be the one that stays perfectly aligned with the candle. You are soul. You are the infinite reflection. The success of the world is not your competition. It is your compost. It is the rich, organic matter that proves the soil of this reality is capable of growing what you have planted. Every time someone else wins, the cost of entry for your own win drops, because the belief atmosphere of the world has been thinned. The corridor of suns is opening. The preview is over. The proximity alert is ringing in the silence. Look at the mirror, see the light, and know, with a hushed and terrifying certainty, that it is only reflecting you. Chapter 13. The Breath of the Infinite. You have sought the law in the heights of the intellect and the depths of the silent heart, but there is a bridge you have yet to fully cross, the bridge of the pulsing flesh. You have been taught by a world of head-dwellers that the body is merely a luggage of the soul, a biological machine that must be pushed, fed, and disciplined into productivity. This is the great divorce. In the high liturgy of silent abundance, we recognize that the body is not a container for your frequency. It is the antenna. The breath of the infinite is the realization that your nervous system is the physical hardware upon which the software of prosperity must run. If the wires are frayed by anxiety, or the circuits are clogged by the hustle of the breath, the highest voltages of the law cannot pass through you. They will instead short-circuit as stress, fatigue, or the weight of wanting. To master this chapter is to stop thinking about abundance and start breathing it. It is the move from the concept to the somatic certainty. To breathe in silence is to acknowledge that the atmosphere is not empty air, but a pressurized field of pure, unmanifested supply. Every inhalation is a withdrawal from the bank of the universe. Every exhalation is a deposit into the field of form. The flute maker, in the bamboo forests of the southern isles, there lived a craftsman named Rin. He did not make furniture or tools. He made the flutes of the unseen, instruments so resonant that they were said to play the music of the stars even when the player was silent. A young scholar, traveling from the great library, came to Ren and asked, "What is the secret of the wood? Is it the age of the bamboo? Is it the angle of the cut? I have measured 100 flutes and none match the mathematics of yours." Ren took a simple piece of green bamboo. He did not use a ruler. He did not consult a chart. He sat in the center of the grove and began to breathe. He breathed until his heartbeat matched the swaying of the stalks. Then, with a sudden, graceful motion, he carved a single hole. Then another. "The secret is not in the wood," Ren whispered, his voice as light as a leaf. "The secret is in the empty space. I do not carve holes to let the air out. I carve them to let the breath of the infinite through. If the wood is too thick, the music is muffled. If the player is too tense, the breath is choked. To play the song of the stars, you must become as hollow and as relaxed as the bamboo itself. You must stop trying to blow the music, and instead, allow the music to blow you." The scholar tried to play, but he blew with the force of his will. The sound was a harsh, dying shriek. Ren took the flute, placed it to his lips, and simply sighed. A note rose that was so pure, it brought the birds from the trees. Ren was not doing anything. He was merely providing a channel for the air that was already there. You are the bamboo. Your hustle, your strategy, and your seeking are the thickness of the wood that prevents the music of abundance from vibrating through you. When you are trying hard to manifest, your body tightens, your diaphragm locks, your shoulders rise, and your nervous system enters the fight-or-flight frequency. In this state, you are a solid object in a fluid universe. You are resisting the very current you wish to inhabit. The law of silent abundance requires a somatic surrender. You must train your body to be electrically conductive to the frequency of wealth. This is done through the rhythm of the lungs, the silent practice of the expansion breath. To transform your body into an antenna for abundance, you must perform the rite of the infinite inhale. This is not a workout. It is a recalibration of your physical identity. Find a place where you can lie flat upon the earth or sit with a perfectly vertical spine. Close your eyes. Do not try to meditate. Simply notice your breath. Is it shallow? Is it held in the chest? This is the breath of the slave, the breath of someone who is afraid there is not enough air to go around. Now, begin to breathe into the very base of your spine. As you inhale, do not think of taking air. Think of the air filling you, as water fills a glass. Imagine the air is gold-tinted, heavy with the raw material of your desires. As you hold the breath at the top for a count of 3, feel the pressure of plenty in your lungs. You are so full that you cannot take another drop. This is the physical sensation of sovereign wealth. As you exhale, do not push the air out. Simply open your mouth and let the air fall back into the world. You do not need to hold on to it, for you know the next breath is already waiting. This is the physical sensation of the sacrament of spending. Say to the hidden room, "I am the hollow bamboo. The infinite breathes through me. My life is the music of the law." Perform this for 10 minutes each dawn. You are stretching your nervous system's capacity to hold high-frequency energy. You are telling your body that it is safe to be full. In the marketplace, this manifests as vibrational poise. Most people, when they encounter a large sum of money or a major opportunity contract. They get nervous. They talk too much. They move too fast. They are overloaded by the voltage. The initiate, however, expands. When the abundance arrives, you breathe deeper. You slow down. You take up more physical space. You prove to the universe that your vessel is large enough to contain the harvest without breaking. By maintaining a relaxed nervous system in the face of great gain or great loss, you become the master of the game. The world cannot tilt you because you are breathing the infinite. You are no longer dependent on the small air of external circumstances. The sovereignty of the still point. Between the inhale and the exhale, there is a still point, a fraction of a second, where the lungs are neither full nor empty. This is the void point in the body. In that silence, you are outside of time. You are neither seeking nor having. You are simply is. If you can learn to inhabit that still point during your daily life, if you can pause for 1 second before answering a phone call, or before signing a contract, or before reacting to a problem, you are tapping into the power of the pause. This pause is where the law of silent abundance inserts the miracle. It is the gap in the bamboo where the music is born. The silence of the senses. To protect the breath of the infinite, you must also practice the silence of the senses. Your body is constantly being fed by what you see, hear, and touch. If you feed it the fast food of the marketplace, the news of the ashwalkers, the outrage of the world, the noise of the unsatisfied, you are clogging your antenna with static. Be ruthless with what you allow into your nervous system. If a conversation makes your breath go shallow, end it. If a room feels thick with the frequency of lack, leave it. Your priority is to keep your internal atmosphere clear and pressurized with the golden air. You are the flute maker. You are the bamboo. The world will continue to blow with the force of its ego, creating only the shriek of the desperate. But you will stand in the grove, hollowed out by the silence. And you will simply sigh. Your sigh will be the manifestation that others call a career, a fortune, or a destiny. They will wonder how you do it with so little effort. They will ask for your technique. You will not tell them about your KPIs or your strategies. You will simply take a deep, slow, sovereign breath. You will smile with the eyes of the infinite. The music is playing. The stars are singing through your ribs. The abundance is not something you are getting. It is something you are breathing. Chapter 14. The Final Dissolution. You have walked the 14 stations of the silent sun, and now you stand at the edge of the ultimate precipice. You have built the hidden room, polished the mirror, and mastered the breath. You have accumulated the tools of the sovereign. But here, at the threshold of the final dissolution, the law demands its most exquisite price. It asks for the you that has been doing the practicing. In the marketplace of the ego, abundance is a trophy to be possessed by a winner. You are taught to see yourself as a subject and the wealth as an object, a distance to be bridged, a gap to be closed. This is the last and most stubborn illusion of the seeker. As long as there is a you who is manifesting abundance, there is still a subtle vibration of separation. To master this chapter is to dissolve the boundary between the observer and the observed. It is to move from the state of practicing the law to the state of being the law. The final dissolution is the end of the method. It is the moment the scaffolding is struck away because the cathedral is finally capable of standing by its own gravity. The drop in the ocean. On the highest peak of the cloud-wrapped mountains, a single raindrop clung to the edge of a pine needle. The drop was crystalline, pure, and terrified. Below it lay the vast, thundering expanse of the great western sea. The drop looked at the sea and felt a profound sense of lack. I am so small, the drop whispered. I am a singular, fragile point of water. The sea is infinite, powerful, and wealthy beyond measure. If I fall, I will be lost. I will be destroyed by the very abundance I crave. I must hold on to this needle. I must maintain my identity, or I will cease to be, a passing hawk, caught in the updraft, banked near the needle. Little drop, the hawk screeched. Why do you grip the wood until you turn gray with tension? You are not looking at your end. You are looking at your expansion. But I will disappear, the drop cried. The sea will swallow my name, my shape, and my history. The hawk circled once more. You were never a drop. You were always the sea. momentarily caught in the illusion of a shape. When you fall, you do not lose yourself. You lose the limitations of yourself. You do not enter the abundance. The abundance enters you. The only thing you will leave behind is the fear of being small. The wind gusted. The drop let go. As it plummeted toward the surf, it felt the separation dissolve. The moment it touched the surface, it did not die. It felt its consciousness expand to every shore, every depth, and every current. It was no longer seeking the water. It was the tide. You are the raindrop. Your personal identity, your name, your history of struggling to manifest, your pride in your spiritual progress, is the pine needle. You have been holding on to the idea of being a successful manifester because you are afraid that if you let go of the technique, the abundance will vanish. But the law of silent abundance is not something you do. It is what you are when you stop doing everything else. The final dissolution is the cessation of effort. It's the realization that the internal frequency you have been cultivating is not a radio station you are tuning into. It is the very fabric of your soul. When the seeker dissolves, the seeking ends. When the wanting dissolves, the having becomes a permanent background radiation of your existence. You no longer manifest a car, a house, or a sum of money. You simply exist, and these things appear in your wake as naturally as ripples follow a boat. The silent practice of the great merging. To facilitate the final dissolution, you must perform the rite of the unnamed essence. This is the final practice, designed to be the last one you ever need. Go to your hidden room, sit in the center of the silence. Instead of visualizing a desire or breathing a frequency, simply ask the darkness, who is the one who perceives this silence? Do not answer with your name. Do not answer with your roles. Look for the I am that exists before thought, before breath, and before desire. Feel the vastness of this awareness. Now, imagine the abundance you have been seeking, the wealth, the peace, the purpose as a golden mist. Instead of drawing the mist toward you, see yourself dissolving into the mist. See the edges of your body, your mind, and your ego blurring until you cannot tell where you end and the abundance begins. Say to the void, there is no seeker. There is only the flow. I and the law are one. In this state, the weight of responsibility for your life falls away. You realize that the universe is not waiting for you to get it right. It is already getting it right through you. You are a localized expression of an infinite prosperity. In the marketplace, this manifests as total presence. The person who has undergone the final dissolution is the most powerful person in any room, precisely because they are the least attached to being anyone at all. They do not pitch. They do not hustle. They do not worry. They move through the world with a terrifying, quiet ease. When they speak, reality bends to accommodate their words, not because they are using a technique, but because their words are the direct commands of the law itself. They have reached a state of sovereign transparency. Most people are dense. They are full of their own opinions, fears, and identities. This density creates friction with the law. The dissolved initiate is transparent. The light of the infinite passes through them without distortion. Because they have no self to protect, they have no self to limit. The sovereignty of the done deal. The final dissolution brings you to the frequency of absolute assumption. In the earlier chapters, you practiced believing. In this chapter, you move into knowing. There is a subtle but massive difference. You do not believe the sun will rise. You know it. You do not believe you have 10 fingers. You know it. When you dissolve into the law, your abundance becomes as factual as your own heartbeat. You stop checking the mirror. You stop counting the harvest. You stop guarding against doubt. Why? Because the mirror, the harvest, and the doubt are all recognized as you in various disguises. You no longer fight the shadow because you know you are the light that casts it. The silence of the source. This is the end of the sacred secrecy because there is no longer a secret to keep. The secret has become your skin. The law has become your breath. People will look at you and see a person who is extraordinarily lucky. They will see a person who has it. Or they will ask for your 3 steps. And for the first time, you will find it difficult to answer. Because from the perspective of the dissolved, there are no steps. There is only the sea. You will look at them with the eyes of the ocean, looking at a raindrop. and you will feel a profound, silent compassion. You might tell them a story. You might give them a parable. But you will know that they cannot understand it until they are willing to fall from the needle. The final instruction. As you finish this chapter, realize that the book is nearly closed. The instructions are over. You are now entering the realm of direct experience. Do not try to remember the chapters. Do not try to apply the principles. Let the 20,000 words you have heard sink into the void of your being like stones into a lake. Let them settle at the bottom, out of sight. You do not need to think about the law to live the law. Walk out of your hidden room. Walk into the world of shapes and numbers. But walk as the sea. Walk as the dissolved drop. The search is dead. The seeker is gone. The law of silent abundance is now simply the way you breathe. You are not manifesting abundance. Abundance is manifesting you. Chapter 15. The Unspoken Command. The journey of the thousand whispers concludes not in a crescendo, but in a silence so dense it possesses its own gravity. You have dismantled the seeker, disarmed the doubter, and dissolved the drop into the sea. Now, you stand in the center of the great court of your own life, and the throne is no longer empty. But you do not sit upon it with the heavy crown of the striver. You inhabit it with the unspoken command. In the world of the Ashwalkers, power is perceived as a struggle of wills, a series of loud orders, frantic negotiations, and the constant friction of trying. They believe that to change the world, they must shout at it. But in the final high science of silent abundance, we recognize that the most powerful force in the universe is the assumption of obedience. When the sun rises, it does not command the darkness to flee. Its presence simply makes the darkness impossible. When you reach the state of the unspoken command, you stop asking the universe for results. You simply hold the frequency of their existence, and the universe, recognizing its master, rearranges itself in silent, instantaneous compliance. This is the end of manifestation as a craft, and the beginning of reality as a sovereign decree. The weaver of the wind, high above the clouds, on the peak of the silent mountain, there lived an old man who was said to control the weather of the entire continent. He did not use incantations. He did not dance or burn herbs. He sat in a small stone hut with a single window that looked out over the world. A young king, desperate to save his kingdom from a decade-long drought, climbed the mountain with chests of gold and a retinue of priests. "Great sage," the king pleaded, "command the rain to fall. My people are starving, the rivers are dust, and the sky is a desert of heat. I will give you half my kingdom if you will only speak the word." The old man did not look at the gold. He did not look at the priests. He continued to sip his tea, his eyes fixed on the horizon, where the blue of the sky met the curve of the earth. "I have no words for the rain," the old man whispered. "The rain does not listen to speech. Speech is a sign of distance. If I must tell the rain to fall, it means I believe it is not falling. If I believe it is not fallen, my belief is a wall that the rain cannot cross." The king grew angry. "Then what do you do? How do you earn your reputation?" The old man put down his cup. He closed his eyes. He did not pray. He did not visualize. He simply shifted his internal climate. He felt the dampness in his own marrow. He felt the weight of the clouds in his own chest. He inhabited the fact of the rain so completely that there was no room in his universe for a drought. He did not say a word, but 10,000 feet below, the first heavy, gray clouds began to boil over the horizon. Before the king could descend the first 1,000 steps, the sky broke open in a deluge so vast it filled the dry rivers in an hour. The old man had not ordered the rain. He had simply refused to acknowledge the drought. You are the weaver. Your life conditions, the bank balance, the relationship status, the career trajectory, are the weather. Most people spend their lives shouting at the clouds, begging for rain, or cursing the storm. They are trapped in the distance of speech. The unspoken command is the abolition of doubt. It is the state where you are so aligned with your internal abundance that the external lack is seen as a mathematical error that the universe is currently correcting. You do not need to command the money to come. You simply walk with the weight of wealth in your pockets. You do not command the purpose to appear. You live with the quiet authority of the found. This is the liturgy of the done deal. It is the highest and final vibration of the law. the silent practice of the sovereign decree. To inhabit the unspoken command, you must perform the rite of the finished fact. This is not a meditation, it is a settling. Go to your hidden room. Sit in the absolute center of your power. Do not bring a request. Do not bring a vision board. Bring only a certainty. Identify the one area where you still feel a flicker of seeking. Now, perform a mental handoff. Imagine yourself handing the problem to a servant who is perfectly loyal and infinitely capable. As you hand it over, you do not give instructions. You do not explain the how. You simply give the object and turn your back. The moment you turn your back, the problem ceases to exist in your mind. It is now a process in motion. Say to the void, it is handled. I have moved on to the celebration. The rest of your day must be lived in the frequency of the handoff. If a thought of the problem arises, you do not fight it. You simply remind yourself that it is no longer in my jurisdiction. It is being woven. The unspoken command is the refusal to check the progress. If you check, you doubt. If you doubt, you are the king shouting at the sky. If you stay in the hut and sip your tea, you are the master of the rain in the marketplace. This manifests as terrifying calm. When everyone else is panicking about the drought, you are the one buying umbrellas. You are not being positive or delusional. You are simply responding to a different set of data, the data of your own internal decree. This is why the sage of the law often appears cold or indifferent to the world. They are not indifferent to people. They are indifferent to appearance. They know that the physical world is a slow-moving liquid, and their internal frequency is the mold. They do not worry about the shape of the liquid today, because they know the shape it will take tomorrow is already cast in the silence. The final synthesis, the law of silent abundance. As we close this manuscript, the law of silent abundance is no longer a book you have read. It is a pact you have made with the infinite. The silence. You protect the power by refusing to leak it through speech. Your wealth is a secret between you and the source. The abundance. You recognize that supply is a frequency, not a quantity. You inhabit the more than enough before the first coin arrives. The law. You understand that this is not a magic trick, but a mechanical certainty. Like gravity, it works whether you believe in it or not, but it works for you once you stop resisting it. You have moved from the seeker to the inheritor. You have moved from the vessel to the source. You have moved from the noise to the command. The living epilogue. From this moment on, you will find that you no longer do the law. You are a walking resonance. When you enter a room, the atmosphere will shift. When you look at a problem, it will begin to dissolve. When you think of a need, the supply will already be knocking at the door. You will live in the miraculous ordinary, where the extraordinary happens so frequently that it becomes your new baseline. The ashwalkers will still be in the desert. They will still be counting their dust and shouting at their shadows. You may help them, but you must never join them. Stay on the mountain. Keep your window open to the horizon. Sip your tea. The drought is over. The law of silent abundance is no longer a project you are working on. It is the very ground you walk upon. The command has been spoken in the silence. The universe has heard. The rain is falling. It is finished.